Morning, everybody. I'm a little bit tired because I just got off work, so yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of always look like hell, but I think I feel a little bit more like hell than I usually do. But that's okay because it is Satanic September, and hell is the place to be, right? It is, what's the 20th today already? Where'd the month go? I mean, wasn't it just Garbagast? And now we have only like 10 days left of the month, and then we're almost into Halloween, so I'm kind of excited about that. But right now it's been a long night, as you can see. So today I want to review the Omen, which I was surprised I'd never read. I've seen the movie a bunch of times. That was another one of those movies that was on pretty regular rotation on the Saturday horror movies that I used to watch as a kid. And one of the things that is mentioned in Paperbacks from Hell is that the Omen, Rosemary's Baby, and The Exorcist they sort of started the trend toward horror becoming more mainstream, and seeing that, yeah, there's quite a lot of money to be made by publishing horror novels. So, I mean, obviously I was familiar with the story, and I went and I looked it up, and I thought, you know, as I was reading, I was thinking, wow, this is pretty close to the book. And then I didn't know this, but it was the novelization of the movie, which David Peltzer wrote first. But he published the book 2 weeks before the release of the film. So that was a little bit of an interesting trivia. And the edition that I read is the ebook, and it was re-released in 2016, 2017. And he made a funny little point, well, poignant little point, I guess, a little bit of a creepy point about the fact that the then current president's son-in-law has the address of 666, whatever street he lives on. It wasn't Broadway. Was it Broadway or was it Park Avenue? I can't remember. Anyway, wherever it is that Jared Kushner lives. But, you know, Armageddon apparently has come and gone many, many times in human history, so who knows if the harbingers of doom were actually what they were doing, what they were supposed to do, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, right? So, basic premise of the Omen is that the Antichrist is born, and he is born of a... This is the part that I can't quite figure out. Somehow he's been fostered, surrogated by a jackal, whatever. And then this guy, he's an ambassador, his name's Thorn. And another thing that they stated was the character was always intended to be played by Gregory Peck. He just has that presence, right? And Gregory Peck was just a fantastic actor. So Thorn and his wife, they've been trying to have a baby for a long time, and she finally manages to bring one to term. But the baby gets switched with this jackal creature. I love that. That's one of the best things about, like, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, anything like that. Never ever explain how the mechanics work. Just, just, you know, just cut it out of the jackal there. Cut her open. Whatever. And the priest that attends switches the babies, kills the healthy baby, and passes along this nasty baby. But for all intents and purposes, to all appearances, he is human. And that's one of the things, I mean, he's set up as this, like, really terrible thing, but it seems to be more just bad things happening around him. And I always felt kind of bad because, I mean, it's just this little 4-year-old kid. you know, and he's actually a very quiet kid. I mean, I think most of us would be quite happy to have a kid like Damien around. You know, he doesn't really do too much. He just kind of plays happily, and he's got his nurse, and he never talks, and he never, you know, does anything until he kills someone. But, you know, and he didn't even really do that. He just kind of ran into her, and she was standing on something stupid. I mean, I've fallen off stupid places before, too. That's one of the things that's, it's like, well, he's going to kill her. And it's like, but she was standing on that thing. If she hadn't been standing on that thing, she wouldn't have fallen off the stairs. Did it actually happen that way, or are we being gaslit here, right? So anyway, so yeah, they try to, you know, they try to get him christened, and the kid just starts freaking out. Like, even as an infant, he can't go into hallowed ground. And this is, sorry, like I said, I just got off work. This is Baylock that shows up, and she's a fantastic nurse, but nobody likes her because she's weird and creepy. But she's, you know, I mean, she's great with Damien, and she brings this, they go out into the, into the woods at night, and they talk to the dogs and stuff, and Thorne's like, yeah, I don't want a dog in here. And then, he starts being followed by this this photographer who starts seeing these things on the photographs, and he gets you know, he's on one of his trips, and he starts to realize, you know, something really weird's going on, and this priest who's trying to repent by not bringing on the apocalypse, when, you know, when he was younger he decided he was going to bring on the apocalypse. Approaches him and says, yeah, this is, you got to kill the kid, or, you know, the end of the world is going to come, right? So the priest dies, and apparently he's like full of cancer anyway, but he has the most bizarre death in the whole book. This lady is trying to open her windows using one of those poles with the hook on it, and she drops it out the window, and it goes right through his head. Like, the deaths get increasingly bizarre too. So before he dies, the priest gives Thorne a name of this ancient person who can help him, you know, not have the whole world collapse. So he and the photographer end up going to Jerusalem and finding this guy in the catacombs who's been down there forever and ever, and he gives him these knives, and he says, yeah, the kid's got to be killed on hollow ground, and if you don't, then everybody's gonna die. So he's like, no, I can't, he's just a little boy, blah blah blah. And the photographer's like, well, I can. And they start fighting, and the photographer runs away, and then he dies another, you know, incredibly weird death. And so then Thorne goes back home and finds Mrs. Baylock, for some reason, made up like a clown. She's wearing all this makeup in bed. And the dog goes to protect her. And so then he grabs his kid, and he takes him to a church. And the kid's screaming, right? Because the kid can't go anywhere near a church, or he'll flip out. And they never explain why exactly Damien starts freaking out whenever he goes near a church. I mean, we know why, because he's like the son of the devil, but what exactly happens? Like, is he in pain? Is he, and he has to shave his head to see that he's got the little 666 on his head, right? That's like one of the big reveals, which, you know, we kind of knew was there all along, but sorry, I was just trying to remember if they did that in the book, or if they... I seem to remember them looking at it when he was a little baby, but maybe I'm getting something mixed up in there. It's, like I said, it's been a long time since I saw the movie, but I just read the book. But I didn't read that in the beginning of the book, but I might have read it and forgotten. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so he confirms that, yes, this is the son of the devil. Yes, this kid must die. And then there's a twist ending, and then it's like, oh, the knives go out, but then Damien's still alive at the end of it, but somehow he's dead. They don't actually, it's never actually revealed how Thorne dies, but something about the blades. I don't know if Damien turned the blade on him, or if if he fell on it, or what. And then Damien gets adopted by some other couple, I think also a politician. And, you know, the story continues. So, I couldn't help but compare the very ending to Son of Rosemary, which, Son of Rosemary, he's written so that he's 33 years old. He literally is the Antichrist. Like, he's the opposite of Christ, but he kind of has the same, he's got this charisma, he is a world leader, and he's, you know, 33 years old in the year 2000. The timing of Damien's birth seems a little bit weird, unless it's supposed to be like the 2012 calendar, or I don't know, because Damien was born June 6th, but it's an election year, so I think it's supposed to be like 1976. I don't know. The movie comes out in 1976, so the timing of it has always been a little bit strange to me. And then, oh, and Son of Rosemary. Okay. If you do read Son of Rosemary, stop reading when they're in the elevator. That would have been the perfect place to end the book. But as it is, the actual ending just blew. It was like the worst ending ever. So just stop reading when they're in the elevator and you've got a perfect book. But yeah, I mean, it's The Omen. It's one of kind of the trilogy of satanic horror that publishers realized could be very popular and very lucrative. So along with Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, and The Exorcist, they were like the big 70s horror. And the idea that the end of the world was coming along with the end of the millennium, you know, you have the age of Pisces going into the age of Aquarius. And you have the, you know, there's always been this, like, all this talk about the end of the world. But I mean, we've been talking about the end of the world since pretty much the beginning of the world, right? So this is nothing new. Although there was one thing that I found kind of interesting where, sorry, they talked about Megiddo is like the city. And it comes out that, no, that actually meant Armageddon. And Thorne's like, what do you mean? There's already been Armageddon? And the guy's like, yeah, lots and lots of people died, but lots of people survived, and here we are, right? And I think that that's true too. I mean, I think that civilizations rise and fall, and this is kind of the muddled point that they were getting at, that if civilization, the way we know it ends, it doesn't mean that humankind is going to end entirely, unless we do something to really, really, really destroy ourselves. And even then, there might even be a few, you know, survivors, right? So, The Omen, I'm going to give it 4 to 5 stars. It was pretty, I mean, it wasn't a terrible book. It wasn't a pedestrian book, I guess, when it came out. But because it's such an old book, it was pretty low-key for what it was. There was no shock, no jump scares. It had some nice atmosphere, but it's something that has been, it's one of those things that if you read it so long after it was published, you're used to the parodies and the, you know, the sequels and the movie, and, you know, there's just been so much done around it that the original impact that it probably had isn't there anymore, right? So just be aware. I mean, I think it's worth a read, you know, if you want to kind of have a well-rounded sense of horror history and, you know, the popular paperbacks of the 70s. It definitely fits in that category, but I don't think it's one of the more special stories that I've read. I mean, there's creepy children everywhere. There's satanic ideas everywhere. And because it is the novelization of a film, the more interesting ideas don't really get fully fleshed out that well. But for being one of the earliest examples of its kind of story, it's definitely earned its place as one of the more well-known horror stories. So, The Omen, 4 out of 5 stars. Written by David Peltzer. The novelization of the book, novelization of the movie, which actually came out before the movie, And that's all I got to say about the Omen. Hope you're reading lots of great horror. Have a great day.